Alright, so this is my video response to Chapter 1 for EDM 500A, Research for the Classroom Educator. The first question is define research in your own words based on the chapter's explanation. So for me, research, after reading the chapter would be essentially identifying a question or a problem and trying to answer that question or problem. There's different ways you can do it depending on the type of research you're doing. You might analyze data and try to solve the problem a little bit more that way, or you may try to collect responses via surveys and try to talk to people more to try to understand the problem or the kind of issue that you're trying to find more information about and potentially solve. So there's numerous ways to go about it, but it's posing a question, researching and trying to answer that question, and then once you've got a good amount of research, or at least some more insight as to what's going on with that question, you can share that with other people, which is a big part. As far as my research approach, whether it's quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods that I use as a coach, I use kind of a mixed method, but I definitely think I use quantitative more, especially as a strength and conditioning coach. Sometimes the results for me are a little bit more cut and dry than wins and losses. So we use strength testing, 2 to 3, maybe 4 times a year, depending on the team, to make sure that the program that I'm implementing is working. And that's kind of my built-in experimentation. We'll have athletes pre-test where they'll do strength exercises. We'll measure how much they can do. And then later on, after we've done a couple cycles of training, we'll retest to see if our training was effective. And that gives me a lot of insight as to not only the program and how well it's working, but also a little bit of insight on the individual athletes. For example, if somebody makes a lot of progress, or the whole group makes a lot of progress and one person does not, there might be something going on their end where we would talk to them, and that can give me some insight and a little bit more research to the question of, better answer to the question of, did this program work to get our athletes stronger? An example of when I would use more of a qualitative approach would be, for example, maybe we have quite a few hamstring injuries on a team. I might survey the team. I might look more at their running technique maybe, and try and explain, hey, I see this is going on. This may be the reason for that. So I definitely use mixed methods, but I lean more towards the quantitative side of things as far as my own data collection and experimentation. And then I guess that would be my real life example as well. Not necessarily an educational problem, but it could be, it educates myself, my staff, as to what are the best methods. For example, we might try a different method this year. We might use, let's just say, APRE training versus a 5-3-1 format for training. Both will produce results, but if we used one year and then we took the same athletes and we used the other method the next year, we might get differing results, which could potentially prove that one method works particularly for this team more than the other. So I'm constantly doing research in my own. That's a large part of my job. Hey, does this work? No, it didn't. Okay, back to the drawing board. I'm constantly doing that. And I have almost 500 athletes to work with to ensure that I'm giving them the best possible program. So I'm constantly experimenting and doing research. A big question I have still about research is just essentially when to use quantitative versus qualitative. I understand that qualitative can answer more of a why question versus quantitative can answer more of like a how much or how many. But I still think there's some nuance there that maybe could have been explained better. That's the big question for me. I enjoyed reading this chapter, and I'm excited to learn more about research as we go through this class. So, thanks for listening.